G Panda Boo.
All right, welcome, people. Thanks for joining. You're listening to the Triggered Thoughts podcast. It's our first episode today.
Yep.
So just happy that anybody that's happened to click on us and join us, we're just happy that you're here, and we're happy to be broadcasting for the very first time. Hopefully, you can continue listening with us and get some or listen to some content that suits you, basically. So I'm one of your hosts, and I go by the name of Verbs. And your other host is a man that's been around a bit, doing his thing, done his rounds on the social media. Some could say he's Marmite if you like him or you don't. I let him introduce himself.
GeniusDan. South
GeniusDan.
London.
So I'm fortunate enough to have, GeniusDan, who is a cousin of mine, join forces with me to bring you this podcast. It's always a pleasure. I know he's got a lot to say, just like I have.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're here together, it's a beautiful thing, man. Do you know
100%.
So like I said, I'm just happy that we're here, man, and we've got this thing up and running, because as we know, but others don't know, that we've just been putting quite a bit of planning into this, and it's just been difficult with the responsibilities of life and family and stuff to try and come together,
Yeah, 100%.
And find that right time where both of us can kind of be in that place of zen where we're ready to broadcast, you know what I mean? But we're here now. So first but foremost, I want to give all glory to God.
Yeah.
Because without him, none of this would be possible.
Yeah, 100%.
And obviously there's going to be some listeners that don't believe in God. And if they don't, that's a you problem. Well, I would ask that if you are listening and you're not a person that's involved with a relationship with God, that you respect, that we are. And because we're people at the end of the day, if you're not in a relationship with God, that's your choice, and we respect it. We may not agree, but we respect it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So today's episode is, you ready?
Yes, cuz.
Right, today's episode, we're going to be looking at, should parents be held accountable for their children being involved in gangs? This is a very touchy topic. I would
one
say
that needs to be addressed.
Most definitely. And I think it needs to be addressed because as myself and GeniusDan knows, and the people out there listening, if you don't know about it, then you must be very privileged and fortunate to not be living in an environment where these things occur. But I would say a lot of people in the UK, even if they're from affluent areas, still are very close to experiencing or seeing, gang activities, or young people being very antisocial, or levels of violence that, some people just wouldn't imagine, but we've seen it, we've been around it, we know it happens a lot. If you're fortunate enough to not see it, then that's good for you. But it's something that we definitely need to address, man. So, Mr. GeniusDan, what's your perception on young people today in gangs? What do you think?
I think that social media definitely plays a strong part in that. I definitely believe that although I'd say, obviously it might be difficult for parents to really kind of, how can I put it? kind of do anything about it, but they need to understand, they need to know the kind of company and associations that their children keep. I believe that they also need to know their children very well, need to know what their children are doing in terms of activities, if they're not studying, if they're not at school, what they're doing, during their time, what they're getting up to. What parents can do as well is kind of make sure that they invest time in finding activities that will keep their children occupied. Even if they find some sort of work, but they must do something that will keep these children off the roads, because as you know, we're losing a lot of the youth to knife crime. you know I feel that we're in a time, it's obviously, as you know, because it's different from when we were growing up in terms of the gang life was obviously there, but in terms of how it was now, I mean, you could fight with a man today and you could live and fight another day, but these guys now, they're just killing you. So I think it's so important that the youth of this generation do something that's positive, that's gonna find some sort of activity, find something that they're good at doing, something that they're interested in doing, that's gonna keep them occupied, so that they don't get
Keep them in the right
involved in,
direction.
yeah. Because as you
Mm,
know, what's the saying? Idle hands to the devil's playground.
100%.
So I think the problem that we have as well is that the government have cut funding for a lot of these activities that was available in our time. We used to have, like the summer camps, where you'd have, tennis, table tennis activity, basketball, football. You'd go to places like Bushy, day trips. So at that time, the youth were always doing something that was entertaining. So they never really had any time to really get up to any sort of mischief. They didn't really have any time to get involved in, killing, or like just doing stuff that's a danger to other life. Obviously there was trouble there, but let's be honest, there was trouble, but in terms of how things were back then and compared to how it is now, massive difference. These youths nowadays, they're heartless. They don't have no, it's like they don't have no morals, they don't have no principles. And for me, obviously being a father myself, you worry, for your children. And some might say to me, okay, being someone that's got two children, how are you going to deal with this when your children now start to go to school? And my answer to that is do my best to get to know the kind of association that my children keep, making sure that I find out what their gifts and talents are, so that if I know that they're, like my young one, he's into football. My oldest one he's very good at designing and drawing. So I'll make sure that I find time to invest in these things that will keep them occupied, so they don't have to then turn to the streets or turn to negative associations, and to be quite honest with you, you can't really choose your children's friends. You can do your best as a parent to make sure that you bring them up right. You teach, you teach them to be respectable children, that they don't end up being what's the word now? Like, yeah, where like there's a word for society. Where not a plague in society. Do you know what I mean? Like they contribute positivity to society. Children are a product of their environment, and as for my children, they know that both parents, myself, the missus, we both work. So it's not a thing where they really have any excuse. They know that I go to work. I know my missus goes to work. So it's a thing where it's not like I'm out there selling drugs or, getting involved in any sort of crime. So there's no excuse. You know what I mean? So it's a thing
Yeah.
where, like if I wasn't, obviously living what I'm preaching now in terms of, like, oh, I'm out there, I'm living, and obviously I'm not knocking any roadman. Everyone obviously got their own like hustle, but I just choose to live my life differently. But if now I'm saying to them, you need to work and that, but I've never worked. They don't ever see me going to work. I'm lying in bed all day. I'm sitting there, drinking alcohol, just doing, just what I mean, then I can't really, I don't really have as much as, yeah, I'm their dad. It won't be that much effective in me trying to, because they can turn around and say, well, you're not working, dad. You're hanging around the streets. You're, just what I mean. But where I can turn around and say, look, you've always known me to be someone that gets up and go to work. You have the. So I'm a living example. You just what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm a living example, and I feel that if you as a parent want to be an effective parent and want your children to, obviously grow up with those values where, you know what, then they're not criminals and they're not out there, doing any sort of crime for a living, then it starts from home. A lot of people turn around and say, children, it's not the parents' fault, but I believe that it starts from the home. Do you see what I mean?
I agree.
What's happening in the household? You see what I
Yeah.
mean? Another thing as well, domestic violence. Children should never be seeing any parents hitting each other. That is a no-no,
Mm.
because these things definitely have an impact in lives of these children as they get older, and then children live what they see. You've heard the saying, like father, like son. Do you see what I mean? So yeah,
Most
there's
definitely.
loads of different factors in terms of what you can do to kind of prevent them turning to the roads. And it's making sure you invest time in your children. You have some parents, and I understand some parents are working two jobs to make ends meet. They're providing for their family, so they don't have the time. They don't have that quality time to spend with their children. So what will happen is you'll find that the children, as they know that, but either, if it's a single parent household, they will know that, oh, do you know what? Mom's never here. So it gives them more time to now stay out late, get involved in, just hanging around on the street, getting involved in probably gang activities, or, or getting involved in stuff they shouldn't be getting involved in. Why? Because there's no structure in the homes. They're left to their own devices. And because they're left to their own devices now, this is how, and they don't really have anything positive to do. There's no activities. They then have a lot of free time on their hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, and you hit the nail on the head, because I was gonna actually ask you, what, you know, because I feel like there's a message out there that a lot of people believe, in terms of a lot of young people that are involved in gangs or criminal behavior come from
Mm,
single parent families. That's the narrative that's always being pushed out there in the British
mm,
media, especially, and you hear a lot of people from especially non-black um,
mm,
backgrounds make reference to that. But you know, I for one used to work with a lot of young people in the past, and I am aware that there is also, whether people want to admit it or not, a lot of young people that are getting involved in gangs and criminal activity that have two parents in the household, but
mm,
both parents work. And when both parents work to pay a mortgage or to pay rent, whatever it is they got to pay for,
mm,
and they're not available in the house, and the child becomes of an age where, when they're allowed to have keys and access to the house by themselves, nobody's
mm.
in, all kinds of madness begins to unfold. And I think people don't understand that there's also two parents out there that face the same problems. And I think it's good that you brought that up,
Mm.
you know. Um, so yeah, children being gang members, do you feel that parents should be held accountable if they are?
Yeah, because to be quite honest with you, if I knew that my children were involved in any sort of gangs, I'm dealing with that straight away. I'm
Mm.
putting a stop to that straight away. You know what I
How
mean?
would you
I'm trying to,
how would you put a stop to that?
well,
If you
for one,
recognize that your child, sorry to cut you, if you
no, go on,
recognize that
guys.
your child was I don't know, all of a sudden coming in with the latest designer clothes, and going outside, and you're giving them curfews, and they're coming back later than you're expecting, and then I don't know, you manage to see that when they're coming back, they're being brought home in a car when your child's like 15 by an older person, or a older group of people, and they come in your house and they start to have a bit of an attitude towards you when you're challenging them about that? How would you manage that situation?
It's a good question. For one, this is why I was saying in the beginning, I'll make it my duty to get to know their associations, the kind of people that they're hanging with. And I think this is where this is something that a lot of parents need to do. They need to invest time to get to know the kind of friends that their children are keeping. It's important. I need to know if anyone's coming across this threshold or anyone is coming into this house. I need to know the kind of lifestyle that they live in, and the only way you're gonna really know that is even setting aside time to get to know their friends. You know, you find, oh, how are you? Yeah, what do you do? What do you get up to? Are you studying? You find out this stuff about asking questions, and I feel that you have the right to, because if these people are coming into your house, you need to know the kind of people that are coming into your house, because if they're living a certain lifestyle, if they're thieves, they're robbers, or they're involved in certain things, it could then it could be then detriment to the household, because then it could mean that that could potentially bring trouble to the household. Do
Yes,
you see what I mean?
most
So
definitely.
yeah, man, it's so this is why even from a young age, what I'm doing as well, cause is I'm setting the foundation, and even as young as my children are, I told them, I say to them, you need to make sure that the people that you hang around, as you get older, you're gonna have friends, but you need to make sure that your choice of friends are good friends. You need to know that the kind of people that you're around are good people. They're a good influence on you. They're not the kind of people that are going to get you in trouble or are going to lead you down a path that you don't want to go. And I tell them the reality of prison. You don't want to be going to prison. Prison is not a nice place. You're restricted. You lose your freedom. You'll have an impact on your future because you end up with a criminal record. So does that mean? So as young as they are now, I make sure that especially the oldest, not so much the young one, but the oldest one, I do my best to, like just drop a few gems and just let him know what my expectations are. I've never been prison. I don't have a criminal record. Do you see what I mean? I live. I would be classed as what you would say a law-abiding citizen, and for the simple fact is that I just like to live a simple life. I don't want to have any sort of police involvement. The police don't know me. I'm not known to them, and I want to keep it that way. And
Yeah,
I've always been someone that's had my own head. I've never been one to be peer, go through peer pressure. I've never smoked weed in my prime example. I've never smoked weed in my life. It's never touched my lips. You know.
yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, yeah, cuz and I've only ever had one hangover in my life, and this just lets you know that if you're someone if you've made up your mind and you choose to be, you can do it. I'll give you an example. I had one hangover in my life. It was a very bad experience. It wasn't pleasant. I didn't like it, and I forced myself this will never happen again. And I've never ever had another hangover. You know what I mean? So
That's good.
if if people are steadfast in what they want to do, if they really put their minds to it, they can. And the same thing with friends. If you know that, if you know that you want your life to go in a particular direction, and you know that you know what you want for your life, you will make sure that you do everything possible not to mess up your life by getting involved in things that you don't really need to be getting involved in, because it does have an impact in your life later on as you get older. I'll give you an example. I thank God that the decisions that I made when I was younger, were good decisions. That now that I'm you know, older and I'm in a particular job, because obviously the job that I do now, it requires DBS checks. I
Hmm.
won't be able to, if I had any sort of criminal record, I wouldn't be able to do the job. So I want to, all these qualities that I've got, I'm not perfect, but the basic qualities that I've got and the things that I've experienced, I want to make sure I pass it down to my children so that they can understand that, what, if you want a good life, and you want to know that you want to go far and do certain things, it's going to require you to make sure that you don't have certain negative factors. Because if you've got certain negative factors, it's going to affect you later on in life. And it also depends on the type of criminal record that you've got. Do you see what I mean?
Mm,
Yeah,
very,
cause yeah,
very
so yeah,
true.
there's loads of things, because obviously I've got friends that have children, and some of the stuff that they tell me, man, is horrific. Then
Hmm.
I ask myself, obviously my children are young at the moment, but then if someone asks a question, if this happened to your child, how would you deal with it? And this is why I make sure now I make it. a point of duty to read. I get to understand what's going on in the streets in terms of, what's the latest, how the local gangs groom children. So I need to educate myself on these things so that I know the signs, I know the triggers, the early warning signs,
mm,
what to look out for if I now find that my child. And this is the next thing as well, because parents don't know their children.
mm, mm-hmm.
Facts, they don't know their children, because there's no way you can turn around and say, yeah, that if your child comes down this way, once again, it comes in where you have to make sure you set aside time for your children. You can't not know that your child is down, your child is, something's going on with your child, but you don't know because you're so busy, preoccupied doing your own thing, whether it's work, something else. And it could be a thing where your child is suicidal. A parent needs to know their child very good, to the point that if their child comes through the door, there's a particular countenance that's not right. That doesn't look like what's going on. You pick it up straight away. Instantly, you're like, no, what's going on? I need to know. This is not you. What's happened? You see what I mean? And this is why I
Mm,
say, even to my young one, my youngest, I say to him, how's school? Are you experiencing any bullying? I have to ask these questions because sometimes, yeah, you can have a good relationship with your children, but sometimes they will still might find it hard to open up about certain things. You see what I
100%.
mean?
Yeah.
So when you have a good relationship with your child, and you reassure them, say, listen, man, I need you to be able to talk to me. I need you to be able to, if there's, it doesn't matter what it is, if you're going for any sort of bullying, if and I'll give you an example. My son said to me the other day, so something happened at school, and I felt happy, cause like I felt happy because
Mm,
I said to myself, rah, he could have kept that to himself. I said, yeah, dad, this guy kind of pushed me. And he told, obviously, that one of the teachers, and the teachers, he said to the teacher, oh, don't forget to tell my dad, what happened. And then the teacher came and said, yeah, this happened. We're dealing with it. This is what I mean. And this is
mm,
what we need. You're finding, yeah, that there's a lot of these children, they're not comfortable. They're not very open with speaking to their parents. And for me, it's concerning. It's
mm-hmm.
concerning. Your child should be able to come and speak to you. If you build that bond with your child, and your child, to a point where your child says, after that, I can go to my mom, I can go to my dad. Even if it's not both parents, at least there's got to be one or the other. There's got to be the child has got to be able to say, if I can't talk to my dad, I'll be able to talk to my mom. If I can't talk to my mom, I could talk to my dad. It's important, man, because we're finding that there's a lot of people committing suicide. There's a lot of people, that children that are suffering in silence, and it's because where there should be that bond, or that relationship with their parent, it's not. A lot of the times it's not, because I'm being honest with you, and I know this because my friends tell me certain things,
Mm,
and I learn from, obviously, what people tell me. And then I think to myself, you know what? Thank you for being honest. Thank you for opening up and let me know that. Because then I now think to myself, okay, if I'm faced with this situation, how am I going to deal with it? Because it's all good people saying, oh, if that was my child. But unless you're in the situation, you can't really comment and say that. Do you see what I
very
mean?
true. Yeah, that's true.
You
For sure.
know?
A lot of parents say stuff like that. Like, if this was my
Yeah,
child, then
it's, and I just think it's unrealistic, because if you're it's easy to say you'll do this, you'll do that, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, but when the actual situation presents itself, will you really do that?
you might even
Will you
miss it.
really do that?
But you might even miss it if you haven't got a relationship with your child. You might be unaware. You know, like
Facts.
I remember when I was doing some work with a parent one time, and she had two boys.
Mm,
They were primary school ages. So I think one was about, how old was one? One was about like
mm,
9, I think. No, not 8 or 9,
mm,
8, and the other
mm,
one was 10. And
yeah.
the 10-year-old one was really, I say, really sort of confident, spoke a
Mm,
lot, smiling, expressed his emotions, expressed his views and
mm,
feelings all the time. But then there was
mm,
one that I was supporting more, the 8-year-old one, and he was
mm,
completely in his shell. And
mm,
he had things going on in that. Both of them had things going on in the house, but the
mm,
older one would smile through it. The other one was suffering, but he wouldn't say anything. And
mm,
cut a long story short, it made me realize when I supported that particular family that the way you raise the children will determine whether the children communicates with you, because I realized that this particular parent, this mum, she used to speak for the child all the time from when he was young. So I'll give you an example. I had a meeting with them one time to check up how things were and support the mum with certain circumstances. And this mum, every time I asked the 8-year-old boy a question, the mum jumped in and answered. And I was thinking, oh, hold on a minute. I had to say to the mum, Mum, he's capable of speaking, you should allow him to speak for himself. And I think when you raise children like that, where he was so low on confidence and he wouldn't speak, or if he spoke, he sort of uttered these words silently. When you speak for a child all the time, you're not encouraging your child to be a leader. And I think the first one that she didn't speak for him that much. So he had more leadership qualities. So it showed you the flip side of the coin between those two boys, where if your parenting styles are different, one you let them talk, the other one you don't. You can see where one will speak to you and open up, and the other one is clammed up and keeps it inside. And it made me realize you really have to let your children speak, because we promote teaching our children to be leaders when they're in circumstances. But how can they do that if you don't give them the opportunity to voice their opinion from a very young age? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You're talking sense there. Facts.
So,
Yeah, that's powerful, man. Yeah.
so I'm saying, so yeah, so, when you see, we see a lot of situations on the news or local papers or even social media and stuff about young people stabbing each other to death and, shooting guns at each other, killing each other by a gunshot drive-bys, all that kind of stuff. And the child's obviously caused carnage in the local streets, probably killed or hurt a few people. If the child gets convicted, for example, do you feel that the parent should have some sort of custodial sentence too?
That's
Just a
deep, you
question.
know.
Just
That's
a
deep.
question. Yeah, just a question. Because you know what it is?
Yeah.
Some parents enable their child to be like that. And I think there's parenting where you've missed it and it could be genuine, but there's parenting where there's recklessness. So I've seen parents encourage their children to adopt a street cultured mentality from a very young age. So I've seen primary school age children walking with parents and swearing or walking with this particular type of swag or listening to certain type of music that a child has no business listening to, and the parent is present and they let it happen, and some of them even encourage it. If that child grows up and goes from bad to worse, because the child don't know no better, if you're introducing a child to that, they're going to get themselves in problems. Who's the person that's supposed to provide intervention and make sure that doesn't happen? It's the parent, right?
Yeah, it is.
So if the parent has brought the child or let's put it like this, because one could say
Yeah,
that's grooming,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true.
If you're a parent and you've grown up a certain way where you was involved in gangster business, hanging on the road, drinking, smoking, listening to, profanity music, and then you bring your child into it and you encourage your child, to get involved in it, or you haven't even got the self-discipline to say, you know what, let's just say I smoke weed, I've got kids, and I might say, you know what, when my kids go to bed, I'm gonna light up a spliff and start enjoying myself. But
Yeah,
there's parents out there that actually light up spliffs with their children in the room.
yeah, that's wrong.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's wrong.
So if you're doing stuff like that,
Hmm.
and it's obvious, there's more than enough evidence to say you make spliffs in front of your kids. The paraphernalia is all over the house. You drink alcohol in front of your kids. You listen to profanity music. You swear. You have dodgy characters coming into your household that talk a certain way, like they don't even dumb it down so the kid doesn't pick it up. It's all negative influence. Should the parent be held accountable and possibly face a custodial sentence if that child now becomes 19 and commits, I don't know, a
Yeah, I
few
believe. Yeah, I
murders?
believe. Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Mm.
Because
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I see. Yeah, now that you put it like that, yeah.
you put you the reason why I'm saying that is I'm not trying to be an advocate of throwing everybody in jail, because I don't necessarily believe that's always the way. But you said a very good phrase earlier in, we say children are a product of their environment. So if a child's nurtured into poison from a young toddler all the way up, and that child had the ability to be able to become somebody, use their talents, go down a positive path, but every time they displayed that they were a good drawer in school, they were a good athlete in school or whatever, and the parents kept on encouraging them to, just be on the street with your friends, pose, wear the latest trainers, have your hairstyle this way because you look like, I don't know, one of them gangster rappers, trying to model them off of a gangster rapper or something like that.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that not
yeah.
bringing up the child? Is not
Yeah,
creating a, a,
yeah, it
a,
is.
a community terrorist?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a valid point you put there. Yeah, absolutely.
And
So
there's
yeah,
a
I
few
believe
of
that's
them.
something.
There's a few of them out there. So I personally believe if that can be proven, because obviously it has to be proven, you can't go to court without evidence. If that can be proven that that child has grown up in that environment, that's no fault of the child. If the child ends up growing up and committing murder, it means that the child didn't have any form of good intervention or positive, you know, energy or direction within his home. Is doomed.
Yeah, that's a very very good point you've raised.
Mm,
Very very good point. Yeah.
because I just feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong. When we was younger,
Mm,
we'd be playing outside, like you said. We'd be involved in youth centers or youth clubs or certain community things going on. You might have a local football club set up a football program. You'd be there throughout the summer holidays doing your thing or whatever. Not, you had no time to muck around and get involved in that, negative
mm,
gang violent stuff or whatever. But
mm,
now we're in a time where the government doesn't invest in none of that. It's all closed down. Those
mm,
opportunities ain't really there like that. But then we
mm,
also throw into the mix now that we have social media. Yeah.
mm,
That your child could be in the house and be exposed to madness. And you have
mm,
parents that let them have access to certain social media platforms.
mm,
They let them have accounts that they're not supposed to have at that age, but they
mm,
give it to them. They don't monitor it. The
mm,
children, I don't know, become angry, or like you could see a child like have arguments with their friends at school, at home,
mm,
on the phone, and all of a sudden they shoot out the door. And the parent can tell that it's something that happened on social media that upset them, but then they come back home and the parent isn't checking in with that child or providing intervention. Look, what happened? You know, what did you
mm.
go and do? Maybe I should take you off that phone for a while. Maybe you should come off that platform for a while. They're not doing none of that. Just leaving them to just govern themselves.
Leave them to their own devices. Yeah.
Yeah, then if they go
Mm,
from bad to worse, or they're groomed by somebody on social media, or the wrong people are knocking at the door, or beef comes to the front door and you as a parent still ain't checked in,
mm,
you have to be held accountable.
mm. Facts. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because
That's
you're not
just
doing,
so true. Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
you're not doing your best to create. You're not doing your best to push your children to become honest members of society.
Mm,
And
that's
it's going
true.
bad, and you're really not trying to provide any intervention. I mean, I understand the element of fear. Your child might get involved with the wrong people, gangs. You might get scared as a parent. I
Mm,
understand that element totally. But then
mm,
there's the police. So that's the next question. If you think about it, how many parents, if you as a parent and your child was going wayward and they were already hanging around with certain people that you saw as unruly, dangerous, threatening, and you felt that it was out of your hands, but your child kept coming and pushing the key in the door and coming back in your house, and you know this child has got the capacity or already has had beef at your front door, or your door's been shot at, or do you know what I mean? Your
Yeah,
car's been vandalized or whatever because of what they're doing on the street. You no longer want that child in your house no more. Would you call the police?
Yeah, that would be that's the only option left. What would you
And
do
how
in that
many people?
situation?
How many people would? How many parents would you honestly say would take that option?
hardly, hardly any. You know, you know why? Because a lot of people, when it comes to police, you know, people are too worried about what other people are feeling. Oh, you know, you're going to the feds. You know, there's that negativity when it comes to the police because they're known as they don't they're known as being a negative entity, as in, you know, they how they deal with black people as a whole.
Yeah, they're like ops.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
opposition
so
for those listeners that
yeah,
don't know. Yeah.
and you could potentially end up being hated because people know that once you have any involvement with the police, you can't really be trusted again. Because as you know, with the peer pressure, you know, anyone that deals with the police is classed as an informer. You know what I mean? But then on the other hand, then it's like if you take things into your own hand, you can end up getting in trouble as well, end up being arrested. So it's a catch-22. Because if you
There
go
you
to the
go.
police, then you're going to be labelled as some sort of informer or someone that works for the police. Because people, that's the first thing. Once anyone sees you around any police, the first thing they say is that he's an informer. He's working for the police. You know what I mean? So there's that negative stigma that's already attached to the police anyway. And then on top of that as well, already a lot of people say that the police don't do enough anyway, especially when it comes to black people. They're not interested. Does that
Yeah.
mean they show less interest? And a lot of the time they're already out there stopping a lot of innocent black boys.
Yeah.
And it's something that happens. You see the videos on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, police brutality. So then if you see all this happening, how can you go to the very people that are a threat to your own people? But then at the same time, it's like we're our own worst enemy anyway because we are killing each other. So it's a hard one, man. It's a hard one, cuz.
Yeah. 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 100%. You know. Yeah, and I do believe I do understand why we wouldn't go to the police to some extent.
Mm,
But I also
mm,
feel that if I was in those shoes and my child was bringing violence and vandalism to my house, not them doing it, but people looking for them because of what they're doing on the street,
mm,
what they're associated with, you know, I'd be thinking, well, one day I could be in my house and a bullet could fly through the window
mm,
and hit me or one of the other children.
mm.
And, you know, as much as I don't really want to call the police, this kid needs to get out for the safety of the rest of the family members. Why should everybody else suffer? Because this kid won't
That's a
listen.
good point. That's a
Do you know what I'm
very, very
saying?
good point. Yeah.
Yeah, why should everybody else suffer and their safety be at risk or be compromised? Because this kid that is a part of me
Mm,
won't listen,
mm,
won't get out of it, won't stop it.
mm.
I will take the label of snitch and all of that if it means that my kids survive.
Mm.
The kids that have a chance, they can survive. This one here don't want to listen, so that's a him problem, not a me problem.
Yeah. That's powerful, cuz. Yeah, I hear that.
Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's a very mature comment, you know?
Yeah, because you would have explored every resource possible, every option possible before you got to that point. When it gets to the
Mm.
point where your child comes in the house and you're like, oh, does he have to come back here? It's game over.
Yeah, straight up.
What's gonna happen when he
Yeah.
now he's back here? What's gonna happen? I'm peeping through the curtains, thinking, is there anybody following him outside?
Yeah.
A car drives past and pulls up outside. It could be, I don't know, the Amazon man driving his own car, but I think somebody's out there trying to pull a drive-by when
Well, an ops, innit?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, I'd have to live in all that paranoia now and uncomfortability because this little shit won't listen. I know what option I'm taking. And if you're a parent in that situation, anybody listening, I suggest you take that option too, if it's got to that point. You can't find nobody to bring reel your child back in. Yeah, like a fisherman with a fishing rod reeling a big catch. You can't find anybody to help you reel that child back in. The child just ain't listening. Mate, hand the fishing rod to the police and let them deal with it.
Yeah, it's a valid point you've got, especially if it comes, as you know, a lot of these youths out there, they're just getting killed now. So
there you go.
It's either worry about what people have got to say, or you put the best interest of your child, in the front, and you get something done.
100%. I totally agree.
You know. So yeah,
totally
that's
agree.
Because at the end of the day, it'll be the parent that will be left grieving, wishing that they didn't have to worry about what society's got to say because they've gone to the police. Because you know what you're facing in your household. You see what I mean? You know what you're facing in your household. You know the headache. The stress. So to then be worried about what people think, and I think that's the problem that we have with society. People are too worried about what people think. That's why they don't really live their life.
Yeah.
They're not free in their own bodies, so to speak. They're not free. They're not free mentally. Yeah, as well as they might be. How can I put it? I'll call it the prison without walls. So you're not even in prison, but you're trapped. You're caged in your own mind. You're not free to say you're not free to express how you feel. You're not free to say, yeah, you're not free to say what you want because you're worried about what someone else is going to think. You're worried about if you do this, you're going to be looked at this type of way. You're going to be looked at this type of person. So yeah, it's sad, to be honest with you.
So
It's sad.
they're portraying a false image. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
living in their own metaverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that still. That makes sense. It's sad. It's sad, and it's a shame that we have to see all these, these posts and articles on young people dying in the streets. But overall, I do personally believe, like I said, that if parents are aware that their kids are involved in this and not putting out all the stops possible to ensure that their child is given some redirection to come out of it, it could be the simple things like, you might have family in, I don't know, different neck of the woods in the UK. Send them away. You know what I mean? Until school that, I had to send them away because it got out of control. He needed a break somewhere else to rethink. And then
To
I'll
send
bring
them
him back.
away to save his life.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And I think if you don't exercise all options and your child ends up doing what they're doing and bringing problems to your house and compromising the safety of others in your household, then I just think if you know all of that as a parent and you haven't done anything, I think you're as much to blame. You know what I mean? Like nowadays in law, you get what's it called? Joint enterprise, where you could say, GeniusDan, you could say you're angry with somebody at work and you're gonna kill him. You phone me or you sent me a voice note saying, well, this person's getting on my nerves and I swear I'm gonna kill him tomorrow, And I don't make no phone call to the police, even though you've sent me that to say, boy, you know what? Go check GeniusDan, please, because I feel like he's gonna do something, that's gonna compromise the risk of somebody at work. Let's just say you go and do it and that voicemail's in my phone, you kill them, and then they check your phone and realize you sent me that voicemail with that information in there. I'm getting the same bird as you.
Wow.
Same prison sentence, joint enterprise. So if that's the case for 2 friends, 2 cousins, 2 family members, 2 associates, 2 gang members, whatever you want to call it, why is it not the same for a parent and a child if the parent has been enabling that child to do what they want, waltz through life, getting away with shit, without being challenged, why does the same rules not apply?
That's a fact. That's a good point. That's a good
You know what
point.
I mean?
Mm.
And until then, we're going to have the same problem, because I think parents should be doing their utmost to make sure that their children are growing up in the right way. You know, like you said, rightly so. Living examples, living proof. Your parents behave in a certain way in the house that shows a child how to be a man, a respectable man, or how to be a respectable woman. Giving your child opportunities, putting them in activities so they can nurture their talents and recognize they're good at something, and that talent that they have might just give them a career. You know what I mean? Getting to know their friends. If their friends are rotten from a young age, you teach your child, this friend is not for you, because every time you're around them, you come home and you're crying. You teach them those things from a young age. You allow them to speak, so they're leaders. When you allow them
Yeah.
to speak and they're leaders, they can voice how they feel, or they can
Mm.
make decisions, and you teach them the importance of, if 5 people decide to walk down the road and walk straight into a burning fire, and you can see it's fire they're walking into, why would you walk with them? Walk away.
It's true. It's
You
true.
have to teach them these things from young. And
Mm.
if you do that, I'm not saying it will spare you of the problems that could potentially reach you in terms of gangs, but
Mm.
it will significantly drop the percentage, the chances of them going down that road will drop it
Mm.
significantly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah. Is there anything else you got to say?
No, man, I pretty much said a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
man.
really and truly, we can close up and say, you know what, we don't necessarily want parents to go to prison, listeners. But
Mm.
if you're enabling, if you're not trying to redirect or provide intervention for your child, when you realize they're hanging with the wrong people, they got access to designer clothes that you can't afford to pay for, they're wearing clothes that cost more than the tired sofa in your house. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
They're
man.
carrying weapons. They got drugs. They're coming in high. They got killers coming in your house, or friends that you're scared of. If you can see all these things going on, they've been nicked for having a firearms, and you haven't provided any form of intervention or reached out to family members for support, or if it's gone past all of that and you haven't called the police on your child, you've just sat back and watched the whole journey go from bad to worse, then maybe there's a strong possibility that you as a parent should face jail, because
Mm.
ultimately you've let the child down.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
serious. Mm. That's serious. Yeah.
All
A
right,
valid
then. Well, on
point.
that note,
Yeah.
I think if there's anything else you got to say, we're going to finish off.
Yeah. No. So we just yeah, we thank God, man. We pray that any of the listeners that's going through any sort of issues with their children, we pray that they will find something in this podcast that will be helpful, and that will potentially guide them, with any sort of help in terms of doing something about any issues they're having with their children, and obviously reaching out to the right people, whether that be family members or a third party, for some sort of help or assistance. Because I think, as you know, we've addressed, a lot of people are suffering in silence, but hopefully with hearing what we've spoken today, it will, obviously empower them to maybe have the confidence to speak up and get the help that they need.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
I'd just like to add quickly, with everything that we've said, parents, myself, and GeniusDan's input on today's episode, just remember, if nobody's child's spared of experiencing or going down that road of being a gang member. So always have your eyes open. Don't approach it with, oh no, not my child. I think the
Mm.
key message from me is, the earlier you challenge the situation, the younger they are, you challenge it, the better. The later you leave it, where it could be too late.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Thanks, Geniusdan, for joining me.
Thanks, Verbs.
Yeah, and we're going to close up on
again.
this episode.
Yep.
And yeah, we'll be back next week.
Nice one, cuz.
OG Panda Beats.